5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Wellness Week Live, ladies and gentlemen. We are now talking about private school or public school, private school or public school, private school or public school.
AJ Anthony.
He's the PhD chemistry, biochemistry. Like and subscribe. We're trying to keep you short to 10 minutes. We got to hurry it up, baby. Okay, so, Magnus. So this is the big debate here in our country. Private school or public school, and I don't know. Depends who you talk to. Some people say, public school's crap. And then other people are like, nah, private school's crap. Now, I have gone to public and private school on and off throughout my whole life. And in America, at least, I know you come from a different background, a different country. But in America, there's pros and cons to both. I mean, I think it's unfair to say one is better than the other. It's depends on what you're looking for and how you're looking for it and what the context is. And, I had a lot of, by the way, I was a teacher also for 11 years, and I've taught in public school and private school. And again, there's pros and cons. There's great things about each. There's bad things about each. I mean, and I think all teachers would agree to that. Nothing is perfect, but I think if you're in America, at least, generally speaking, facility-wise, just the structure of the buildings and what they offer, public schools, have a bigger budget than a private school. So typically, the football field will be nicer. The basketball courts will be nicer. There'll be more basketballs. I know when I was teaching in private school, parochial school, I had to buy a lot of my supplies for the kids. No one asked me to do that, but I chose to do that. And in public, generally speaking, you have a bigger budget. You don't have to, shop for the kids, so to speak. But what about you when you were growing up in Sweden? I mean, how was public and private?
So in Sweden, basically, most of the schools are public. Like when I grew up, there were very few private schools. That has changed. So now we have more like freestanding, separated schools, but they have to fulfill a lot of should say rules and laws and things like that to be able to keep it like up and running. But I mean, for us, I mean, it's the same thing with universities and anything like that. Everything is basically run on, like, if you compare to a federal kind of government or whatever you're supposed to call it, that goes through everything, that kind of lines everything up, that you have to basically fulfill. And it's the same thing if you're trying to get into a university. You cannot just pay your tuition and you're good. You have to, like, when you apply, you have to fulfill the requirements to actually get in, and you're competing against a lot of other people. So they look at your GPA and things like that.
Yeah.
Similar to here too, but yeah, it like popular kind of educations are going to be like a lot of people that goes into it compared to others. So it's different. But I mean, our like public school in Sweden was like, at least when I went to school, I enjoyed it. It was good. I mean, it was very organized, and we had a lot of things, when it comes to books, pens, paper, whatever.
Yeah, I think here in America too, again, generally speaking, public school, I know I used to teach in New Jersey, then I would say vast majority of the time, public school teachers are compensated and paid better than a private school teacher. So the goal is to get to public school because the pay scale's higher, you start off higher, better benefits, things like that. So, again, there's great teachers in both private and public, but I think you, generally speaking, get teachers in the prime of their professional life in the public schools here, where the private schools, you either have teachers who are just starting out, they just got their degree, or they've retired or semi-retired and they're going back into teaching at the private school. So, and again, that doesn't mean that they're good or bad. It's just that's typically how it goes here in America. So, yeah, I mean, again, I don't think when people say one's better than the other, you have to really quantify what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I think generally it's the facilities and the hardware. Public schools generally they have a bigger budget. You got the United States government behind you, or your
Yeah.
state government behind you. So, but anyway, so
No, and I want to like this. I think you kind of like point out an important thing. I mean, it's not just if it's private or public. I think it has more to do like how is the teacher and student interaction, things like that, and because I know like you have a lot of coaches and teachers that have very limited resources, but are tremendous and help their clients slash like students like way better than someone that has like computers for everybody and TV and everything. So and computer systems and all that. So and that's something that a lot of people kind of have forget is that like how is the teacher interacting with the students, and what we usually say is that don't just fill a bucket, light a fire.
Right.
Because if you get the students to be self-motivated and they want to learn, you've done a great job. That's something that they will benefit for the rest of their life.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing too is here in America, at least, generally speaking, private schools you can be fired from. There's no tenure per se. In public schools, once you pass a couple of years, whatever it is, 3 years, 4 years, and you get tenure, you're basically bulletproof. I mean, you can't be fired, which is not good. Now, they may say, well, no, it's not true. You can get fired in public schools. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure. The process to get fired from a public school is like, you got to go through 9,000 meetings and 17 million hurdle. Yeah, you can't get fired. Private, though, yeah, private's a little easier to get fired. I think it's a good thing, and that's the argument, too, with charter schools and things like that. It's like, hey, the downside of that, though, is, again, everyone would make the argument, or some people might make the argument, hey, if that's not fair to fire a teacher, like, it's nice to have protection. And that's true, too. But it's a balancing act. It's the whole union versus non-union thing about anything in our workforce. So, I don't know. But anyway, so do they have unions for the teachers in Sweden or no? Like, how does that work?
Yes, yeah. Of course. Basically, we have unions for basically everything in Sweden. You don't have to be in them, but that's your choice, or you can pick and choose which union you want to be in. So you like, yes, they are protected for sure. But again, it's in Sweden, it's fairly hard to get fired, period. But it's also so hard to get hired too, because it's expensive to hire people due to the fact that we like a company, or like you pay a lot of taxes for hiring people. So, but that's a whole different conversation. One thing that I also want to add, like when it comes to if a private school or a public school is better, it's actually the student. Like, what kind of student are you, and are your parents kind of preparing you to be ready for school? Because when it comes down to it, most people like sitting down and like downloading information into our brain is usually not the best way for most people of doing it. So, but it's the easiest way of doing it in a larger group. But I mean, I think it's important that like, you can't just blame teacher if it's a good or bad school.
Oh,
it has a lot to do with the students too.
You made a good point there. That's true. A lot of people, right, like to point the finger at the school, the teacher. I would make the argument 60% of the fight is at home. And if you come from a bad background or home that doesn't care about education, or a broken home, or people who are just not there, whether they're, whatever may be the reason, you're going to, exactly. It takes two to tango. And I think generally speaking, private schools have a little bit more of a family atmosphere where public schools don't, generally speaking. But that's what I've noticed. And like I said, I've been part of both public and private as a student and a teacher. And that's one nice thing about a lot of the private schools, is that there's that family atmosphere. They tend to care more, generally speaking, not that public schools don't, but, so that's that.
No, but that's also a different. It's funny that you bring that up, because that's a completely different things with like school spirit. Like in Sweden, we do not have school sports or anything like that. You basically play club sports, so we don't have that kind of and a lot of the different clubs that you have in school here. It could be science or art or like robotics or instruments and things like that, we don't have that kind of the same thing. So we don't really have like a school spirit or a mascot or things like that, or that the school
Separation between school
has.
and other curricular activities.
Yeah, so with that you do kind of outside of school.
Right.
And of course, I might be wrong because I haven't been in the Swedish like school system like that for a long time. But it's just something that is important. Like, I think that it's kind of interesting to see that there's a lot of school pride and things like that goes into it that differs from where I grew up.
Right. Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's some. I mean, we do have some club stuff here in America on top of the public school or private school institutional sports and activities. But yes, generally speaking, it's right. Europe is going to be separation of whatever sport and state or whatnot. But yeah, so I mean, there's pros and cons of both. Magnus, before we wrap it up, because we crossed over the 10-minute mark, anything else you wanted to add?
Well, it comes down to it. First of all, like I said before, like a student, like whatever you bring to school, that's basically what you're going to get out of it. So it's important. That's why if we're gonna bind it into basically a nutrition talk here too, is that how do you expect your kid to learn anything if they're not eating healthy and their brain is ready to actually absorb information? Just a little point there. And I think that's an issue, because you see a lot of people, like a lot of kids, not eating the right nutrition. They don't get enough sleep and things like that. You're sitting and playing around with your phones and like having structure and not being allowed to play around. I think it's important. So parents, do your job parenting so your kids can actually benefit from going to school and learning things.
Yeah, the parent is part of the school equation. I think people forget that, right?
Yes.
But awesome. All right, folks, that's it. You hear it. You can let us know in your comments what has been your experience. What do you think is better or not better, or certain aspects that are or not for public or private? But that's it. Wellness Week Live. Check back in. We got a whole bunch of shows coming up, baby. Awesome. Magnus, thank you as always, my man. Have a good
Thank you, Anthony, for having me.